breaking the rule there, sorry. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. I cannot tell you how much this means to me and Jane and my entire family. To see this level of support. By the way, you all look great in green. That's Ron Johnson green out there. And I hope you all did get your souvenir cup here. It's one nice thing about having a U.S. Senator that's a real live manufacturer. We do hand out product every now and again. It actually has some real value. But again, I want to thank everybody for coming out here. But I do need to thank, four people in particular. The first one is Jane. Jane, let's face it. This decision to do this basically 6 years ago this month obviously changed my life, but also changed Jane's pretty dramatically. And, the number one, I cannot tell you how much support Jane has given me and really how much she's got to take in terms of having to listen to me all the time. So God bless you, Jane. Appreciate it. Next person I have to shout out is Tony Blando. Alias Commando Blando or T-Bone. But again, T-Bone, I could not do this. I could not do this without Tony. Again, somebody who has to listen to me a lot. And he has just been a rock, as Jane has. So, Tony, thank you. And then where are Barry and Mary? Barry and Mary Johnson. Okay? I kind of changed the course of their life, too, because they weren't living in Oshkosh when I decided to do this. And I asked Barry to come over and take the reins of PACUR here and join just a first-class management team and a group of folks here that made this company great. And Barry's done a great job, and then Mary's right there, and both those two also have to do an awful lot of listening to me, and I appreciate that. And Mary also has kind of taken the mantle of my mom. We called her Sarge, and I also have my second mom here, Kathy Kiernan. But Mary's gotten so involved in the community. The Boys and Girls Club, we had a great event last Saturday, and Mary's right there in the silent auction. So, Mary and Barry, God bless you. Thank you. I got to go through the thank yous. There's just so many people to thank. I want to thank everybody who works here at PACUR. They've done a great job. The plant always looks fabulous. They put it up a little bit more of a notch here, and it looks beautiful. Thank you. Now, I was at a Lincoln Day dinner with Jane over the weekend as we were driving home from Fifield, about a 3.5-hour drive. Jane was saying, listen, trust me, she's heard my stump speech enough. She said, Ron, now you're kind of into the campaign. Oh, by the way, quick, the special announcement, I'm running for re-election. Okay, let's just get that. I kind of figured you all knew that, but there's nothing beyond other than I'm running for re-election. But anyway, let's get back on track. Jane said, now that you're kind of in the election mode here, you maybe ought to start telling people a little bit more about you. You talk about the issues, you talk about the problems facing this nation, but just spend a little bit of time talking about you. So I'm a little uncomfortable doing that, but I don't think too many people were really watching the video, which kind of laid out the background. But the fact of the matter is, I'm the person I am today because I had two great parents. I have two wonderful parents that had deep faith. I mean deep faith. And they raised me with a value that certainly taught me that probably the greatest compliment you could pay any person in life, no matter what that person did, was, boy, there's a hard worker. Can you imagine the shape our country would be in today if every child could say what I just said? They had two great parents of deep faith that instilled a value of work. This country would be far greater shape. So, a lot of times when I am introduced, is a lot of people talk about he worked hard all his life, and that is true. I shoveled snow, I caddied, I had a paper route, lied about my age, said I was 16 when I was really 15. Started my first tax-paying job at Walgreens at minimum wage for $1.45 an hour. But again, I worked hard all my life, particularly in those early years, because my mom and dad made me. Okay, it wasn't necessarily self-initiated. My mom and dad made me. And again, going right back to the value of having great parents. So anyway, that's what kind of made me who I am, that basic background. So in 1979, Jane and I made the decision to choose to live in Wisconsin. And we came here in 1979 and we started PACUR. Now, as you look around, I mean, this is a pretty big operation now, right? A lot of pretty complex equipment, a lot of great people working here. Well, it started out in a 20,000 square foot facility. And when I got here, all we had were the brick walls. The machinery wasn't even delivered yet. So the machinery came, and then my brother-in-law, Pat, and that's, by the way, that's how it gets its name, Pat Curler, dropped the T, the L-E-R, and that was actually Jane's idea, PACUR. So Pat and I, together with some good millwrights from C.R. Meyer, started installing the equipment. And then once we had it installed, we kind of, well, who's going to operate this? Well, I guess that's got to be us. And so Pat and I, we hired about 3 people to work continuous shift with us, and we traded off 12 to 13, 14, 15, 16-hour shifts. That was the start of PACUR. So that is actually how this country has become the country it is individuals that have an idea for a product or service, people that aspire to build something, to create something. You know, products and services we all value. And then they start hiring people. And they get people to work with them to grow a company and create more opportunities for more people. That's what made this country great. And that's what happened here. You know, what you see behind you here, I didn't do this. I was a part of it, but the people that did this, everybody who works here, every person who works here, I don't care what they do, I don't care what their job is, they have all contributed to making this a great company. And again, I thank them for it. Now, how is my background in business affected by running for the United States Senate? Well, there's a couple things when you're in a manufacturing company that just becomes part of your DNA. Solving problems, root cause analysis, continuous improvement. Those are values that I've taken to Washington, D.C. It's a pretty rare perspective, trust me. Because most of what you hear in Washington, D.C. is rhetoric. People not solving problems, more running away from them, creating scapegoats, doing what they need to do to get reelected, but not really admitting the reality of the problems we face so we can start solving them. So that's where I certainly differ from my opponent. I'm actually going there because I want to solve these enormous problems facing this nation, which brings me to the third point I want to make is, why did I do this in the first place? Why did I decide to run? And you probably heard the story about my speech at the Tea Party, where I was asked by Michelle Litchens, member of the Chamber of Commerce, to come and speak to the harmful effect of government regulation on business. Now, trust me, I could have spent a couple of hours talking about that, and by the way, now I would be spending about 10 or 12 or 13 hours talking about, because over the last 6 years, the regulatory burden has gotten that much worse. But that's not what I gave my speech about. Instead, I talked about President Obama talking about doctors. How they'll take out a set of tonsils or amputate a foot based on a fee schedule. Now, that is offensive on so many different levels, but for Jane and I, it was offensive because our first child, our daughter Carrie, who was here today with her little girl Marit. There you go, there's Carrie right there. Carrie was born with a pretty serious congenital heart defect. Her aorta and pulmonary artery were reversed. So the first day of life, one of those, as President Obama was basically referring to them as greedy, money-grubbing doctors, came in at 1:30 in the morning and saved her life with the procedure. 8 months later, when her heart was the size of a small plum, in 7 hours of open heart surgery, they rebaffled the upper chamber of her heart. So her heart operates backwards today. But as you can see, she's about ready to turn 33 years old. She's actually a nurse practitioner at that same hospital. Of course, now she's a mother of a beautiful baby girl, Marit, our second grandchild. So I gave that speech, told that story, and then folks like you came up to me on the streets of Oshkosh and said, hey, I liked your speech, why don't you run for office? Now, my answer was pretty consistent because I'm not crazy. I mean, who would want to subject themselves to this process of running for office, which is just so negative? Tony says that. He's been in the military, he's been shot at. He's done a lot of stuff in his life. He said this is the most negative business he's ever been in, and that is a tragedy. We're going to try and turn it a little more positive during this campaign, okay? But again, I saw that demonization of people who have dedicated their lives to saving other lives. Rather than incentivizing and celebrating success, we demonize and demagogue against it. That's not what made this country great. That puts America on a wrong path. I also saw these deficits, these $1.4 trillion when I first entered office, $1.4 trillion per year. And I said, we've got to do something about that. We need people that are willing to serve, that are willing to solve problems. And so that's why I stepped up the plate. And with the help of folks, people like you, I won elections. So now I've been there 5.5 years. I've been serving 5.5 years. Again, I ran because I was panicked for this nation. I've been there 5.5 years. Unfortunately, I'm more panicked. I haven't changed, but the situation has gotten worse. It's gotten worse. I hate to report that to you, but it's gotten worse. So why am I going to run again? Because I can't quit on this country. I cannot quit on this country. The perspective I bring, as I said, is pretty unique. Somebody who's actually participated in the free market system. Somebody who had to compete. Now, trust me, all of us here at PACUR would love to be a monopoly. We'd love to be monopolists. But because we have to compete, our prices are lower, our quality's higher, as is our level of customer service. That's what a free market system does. It guarantees the lowest possible price, the highest possible quality, the highest possible level of customer service. That's what makes this country great, that free market competitive system. I understand that. Most people in Washington, D.C. don't. And certainly my opponent, Senator Feingold, has no clue about the private sector. Now, he knows how to grow government, no doubt about it. He does believe there's some big government solution for any problem, but it's those big government solutions that aren't solving problems that are literally mortgaging our children's future. And I have to admit, you consider why I'm doing this. Why did I leave a life I love, a life I would love to return to, quite honestly? I can't tell you how good this feels to be back here in this plant at PACUR in Oshkosh. Yeah. So trust me, if I get a chance to take the tough votes to solve these problems and we solve them, I'm coming home for good, okay? But that's not the viewpoint of my opponent. For whatever reason, he served there 18 years. Let me quick ask a question. What did he ever accomplish? I mean, can anybody answer, think of a thing other than campaign finance reform, which was a miserable failure? Trust me, I'm living in the environment after his solution. He did, by the way, vote against a balanced budget amendment 4 times. Said reducing deficit was a top priority, and then when given the chance, he voted against balancing the budget through an amendment process 4 times. And of course, he certainly was one of those deciding votes for Obamacare. And I got to quote Senator Feingold, because he said this on Mike Boucher's program. He said, this health care bill really isn't as bad as some people are pretending it to be. Pretending it to be? Senator Feingold, trust me, there's a woman over in Spooner that wrote me, together with hundreds of other Wisconsinites. She's not pretending when she writes me, said that her premium prior to Obamacare was $276 per month. Now it's $787 per month. Senator Feingold, that's a real person being harmed by the bill that you voted for, that you put across the finish line. And of course, we all know that Obamacare wasn't good enough for Senator Feingold. He wanted a single-payer health care system. And now because of the tragedies at Toma VA health care facility and other places, we know what a single-payer, government-run, bureaucratic health care system looks like. He wants that for all of America. I don't. I want to give you the freedom and choice to choose what doctor, what kind of health care insurance you want to buy. I want to put you in charge, not the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. Okay? So this election is a really clear choice between two individuals. A citizen legislator, somebody who helped build a business, understands and respects all of you that are trying to work hard every day to contribute to whatever organization you're working for. You know, a manufacturer that has that mindset of trying to find areas of agreement to solve problems rather than exploit our divisions, versus Senator Feingold, who most recently was a California professor, a career politician that literally doesn't have a clue about the hard work you're trying to do and is going to simply run a campaign of making more promises that'll further mortgage our children's future. There's the choice. I believe Wisconsin is going to be intelligent enough to understand that's not the path we want to go on. We actually have to rely on our own individual liberty and this free market system, and somebody that brings a perspective that respects it. Now, as I traveled around Wisconsin, I'll bring this to a close. I've given my PowerPoint presentation. This, by the way, this would be a massive crowd for my PowerPoint presentation. Laying out the realities of the problems we face. Because let's face it, you never solve a problem until you take the first step in solving it. So I've given that PowerPoint presentation. It's not all that fun to lay out these hard truths, these harsh realities, but we have to face them. I've dubbed myself the nickname Mr. Sunshine. You know, that's being facetious. But we need leadership that's willing to tell the American people the truth of our 30-year deficits approaching $103 trillion, of the threat of ISIS, of the fact that overregulation is killing our economy, that we have an uncompetitive tax system, all those things. I'm not going to get into in detail. But let me leave you on really the reason I'm willing to run again. What inspires me to do this, to subject myself and Jane and Tony and Barry and Mary and my campaign staff, who I should also thank because they've also got to listen to me. Why would I do this again? Why don't I just come home to Oshkosh and just say, it's such a mess, it's so frustrating, I'm angry too, I'm just going to give up because I can't quit on America. Oftentimes when I end a speech, I talk about the finest among us, my unique contact at VA hospitals at Walter Reed, where I see these young men and women, to me they're kids, who have lost their limbs defending our freedom. I can never help but ask them, I said, you know, what tour duty? What tour duty? It's always second serve, third serve, first serve. These heroes, these patriots, they're not giving up on America. They're not quitting. That certainly inspires me. I can't quit either. But I want to leave you with this story that really captures the American spirit and tells us why we all have to be so involved. As chairman of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs, I was asked by Secretary Jay Johnson to accompany him on a trip to a 9/11 memorial service in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, the site of United Flight 93's crash. There were two things that were very memorable about that experience, and I want to share them with you. The first was, the day before, they had just opened up the new visitor center. And in that visitor center, there's an exhibit, a row of telephone handsets. And what a visitor would do is you'd pick up a handset and you'd start listening. And trust me, it was not easy to listen to. 3 female passengers of United Flight 93 leaving a voicemail message for their loved ones. Now, some of their fellow passengers were actually fortunate enough to get through to loved ones so they could say their final goodbye. So they knew what was happening. They knew what happened in New York, the Twin Towers. They knew that their plane, their aircraft had been turned into a weapon to be used against their fellow citizens. What was so extraordinary about listening to those 3 voicemail messages was that those 3 women weren't conveying concern about themselves. They weren't feeling sorry about themselves. They were feeling sorry and conveying that concern about their loved ones, about the loss, about the grieving they knew they would be experiencing. I mean, how American is that? And then finally, during one of the speeches, we all remember Todd Beamer's iconic phrase, right? Let's roll. Again, how American is that? Let's roll. What I was reminded of was just prior to Todd Beamer uttering those iconic words, The passengers of United Flight 93 knew it was happening. They discussed it. I can't imagine they debated it. And then those heroes, those patriots, did something quintessentially American. They took a vote. They took a vote. In November 2016, all of us, together with hopefully our friends, our family, our neighbors, perfect strangers, are going to be going to the voting booth, and we're going to decide the direction of this country. Are we going to put it back on the rails, put it back on the right path? Are we going to correct this situation or not? Now, our vote may not be life and death, like it was for the passengers on United Flight 93, but boy, is it consequential. So again, let me close out by thanking you sincerely for coming here. I cannot tell you how much this means to me. But then asking you to do what we all must do, fully commit yourself, be involved unlike you have never been involved in an election ever. Because this is the most important election of our lifetime. So God bless your efforts, God bless the great state of Wisconsin, and God bless the greatest nation in the history of mankind, America. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.